This is the world's blackest fabric, the Musou Black Fabric Kiwami, with a light absorption rate of 99.9% on the visible light spectrum. So today, I'm photographing on the world's blackest photography backdrop. Looking like a mask I cut out in Photoshop, this Musou Black Fabric Kiwami was sent to me by the team over at the Black Market. They make a variety of different types of this fabric, and they make acrylic paint as well. So they're sponsoring this video, but my main reason, other than the fact that it looks like I'm hanging a black hole off a C-stand, is for a lot of commercial food and product photography and video, I'm wanting my background to fall to infinite black. It not only makes the food and product stand out, but can give it that elegant look. I do it a lot in my professional work, so I know just how painful it can be to get that ultimate black or infinite black look. It looks like an optical illusion, like the table is just split right in half. Achieving that ultimate black or infinity black look can be a bit tricky. It's been the bane of photographers for who knows how long. And if you work in a small space like I do and your lights and your background are a bit too close together, then that black, it'll turn gray. And if you try to fix it in post, you might affect the brightness and colors of your subject. Okay, so I'm gonna set up a couple of images here using this Kiwami fabric as my backdrop. And I thought, since it's the world's blackest fabric, why not see what it looks like when I put other black objects in the frame? I just pulled these rocks out of storage. I had used them for a previous photo shoot and I spray painted them with just a normal matte black paint. Just make a little rock garden around my drink here, something for the light to shine through. Because of my small studio, normally I have to try pretty hard to find a workaround to get that infinite black look that I like to go for, either by pushing the table, forward towards my camera away from the background, or pushing the background as far away from the table as I can get it in my limited space here. But right now I'm gonna push this backdrop right up against the table. Now it's only about 1.5 feet away from my glass. Gonna shoot some light through the glass with my key light here on the left-hand side. Now I can drop down some diffusion to smooth out that highlight. The diffusion spreading out that light looks great on the reflection, great on drink photography, but normally it's pretty bad for backgrounds if you're trying to keep them dark and they're too close. I'm gonna place a fill on the right-hand side here to create a nice little reflection on this side of the glass. Now this light is almost pointed directly at the background. And that background is still black as black can be. Don't want to forget my garnish. This is your normal, typical light setup for drink or product photography. Nothing too crazy, and with the light hitting this backdrop, this is Kiwami fabric, nothing's happening. It's still just a black hole. And just for comparison, this is the black paper backdrop that I normally use. Side by side, you can see why this Musou Black Fabric Kiwami could be so useful for product or food photographers working in a small space like I am. I would have a lot of Photoshop work cutting out this background if I wanted to get that infinite black look. As I cycle between these two different photos, one with the paper background and one with the Musou fabric, it's pretty crazy. It looks like I'm turning a layer mask on and off in Photoshop. And this is really the point. If you add up all of the hours that I've spent with my pen tool inside of Photoshop, point by point making a pixel perfect selection, going back in to make my selection even more perfect with my brush tool, if you add just that time up alone, just that, removing backgrounds, swapping them out for a black or a stock photo or something like that, not including all the other stuff like color corrections and retouching, removing the dust and scratches, but just swapping out the backgrounds. If you add up all that time that I've spent removing backgrounds, let's say even at 10 minutes a pop, I've probably racked up multiple months by now. And I think I have the farsightedness to prove it. Bare bulb and dish reflector, softbox, camera, world's blackest background, donut. I'm rigging up this fork to the end of this clamp right here to suspend my donut on. I'm gonna try to press this on without squishing the sides here. I also don't want to crack the glaze. I have my strobe right there with a dish reflector and diffusion paper to give this donut a nice little edge light on the right-hand side and some specular highlights. I'll show you what just this light looks like. Then I have my large softbox over here real close up to fill in the left-hand side of the donut and also just to give some nice reflections to the glaze that I'm going to be pouring here shortly. I'll show you what this looks like too. All right, so I've swapped out the donut. I didn't really like that giant hole in the glaze of the previous one, but this is the last donut that I have. So I have one go at making this shot. Back here behind the table, I'm using my tablet to fire the camera. I'm going to be taking a bunch of photos as I pour this glaze to try to capture as many images as I can to get all those perfect drizzles and drips so I can composite them together into one image back on the computer. Now to put this all together inside of Photoshop, I've cut out each piece that I want from each photo. And I'll go to work masking these together, blending each drip and part of the glaze that I want to keep until I get something like this. Now this looks pretty good on black. I like the infinite black look, contrasting with the white glaze and both working together to make this pink glaze and colorful sprinkles stand out. But since I know that this is solid black, the blackest of blacks, replacing this background with a new one if I wanted to should be pretty easy. I'll grab my magic wand tool, click on the background and click in the donut hole, inverse this selection. Then I want to tuck in this selection. So I'll go back up here, click selection, click modify, then click contract. I'll choose something like 8 pixels. That just makes sure that none of this black background is showing around the edges of my donut and drips. I'll feather that to 2 pixels and I'll click on the mask icon down here to make that background disappear. It's not going to be perfect. This method misses a few pixels around the cracks, so I will have to clean it up a bit around these tiny shadow areas. Now I'll drop in a new layer, move it below our donut layer, and select new color. I like the blue, it goes nice with my white and pink. Now I'll draw an ellipse around the donut, press Ctrl J to copy that selection to a new layer, press Ctrl M to bring up my curves, and make this new layer a bit brighter than my background color. Then I'll go up to Filter, over to Blur, and then use Gaussian Blur and blur this out pretty significantly. That looks nice, and I'll click on my background layer and apply that same Gaussian Blur. Now I have a little spotlight effect and a whole new backdrop. As you can see, I didn't have to first shoot it on a black background and then go into Photoshop and even further make it more black. Even when your lights are pointed directly at it, this black background gives you that infinite black look right from the start. No further Photoshop needed. Well, if you made it this far in the video, that's fantastic because there are a few things that I've yet to mention about working with this fabric. One thing is that you buy it in a roll of whatever size that you want, and then it's really easy to cut it down from there. I've just made this little square right here with just a normal pair of scissors, and it slices right through it. It has this nice little plastic back to it, which I think helps keep it a little bit more rigid. Number 2 is it is a felt type fabric, so it will collect a lot of dust and lint that's just floating around in the air. If you are photographing on it directly, maybe you're doing a top-down jewelry type shot, you're probably going to want to take a piece of tape or a lint roller and just clean it up before you take the photo. And speaking about that, you can't really see it on camera, but in real life, when you're looking at it, all those pieces of dust and lint that do fall and collect on the fabric will reflect the light. But that's it. That's the blackest photo background in the world. A huge thanks to the team over at the Black Market for sending over this Musou Black Fabric Kiwami. Check the link down in the description below if you want to pick up a roll of this fabric for yourself. Hit all those buttons, turn on notifications, subscribe, like, drop some comments. And now, fade to black.
Man, I need some more coffee.